Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine, specifically the cornerback group as it pertains to analytics. So this is a video that is going to go over a lot of information, information that you may not be familiar with if you're new to the work that I do. In which case, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So if you're not familiar with explosive lower body strength score, speed score, flexibility score, if any of those terms kind of sound foreign to you, you can just go to the description to get a term and definition. But a simple explanation of those terms is the explosive lower body strength, or EXP as is shown in the chart here, is essentially takes the vertical and the broad jump and measures it against mass density, which is weight divided by height. So it's essentially looking for how explosive an athlete, a cornerback, is for their size. SPD is the speed score, which is the 40-yard dash measured against mass density, which is how fast they are for their size. And then FLX is flexibility, which is how flexible they are for their size. So let's get to the players at the Combine. First off, we're going to go over players that put up red flags, and not red flags necessarily in terms of becoming a long-term starter, but red flags in terms of their ability to become a Pro Bowl or All-Pro level cornerback. We'll get into the cornerbacks that had the best performances towards the end of the video, but I just wanted to get out the players who failed to meet high-quality outcome potential based on their athleticism traits. First off, with explosiveness, the cornerbacks that did not hit explosive lower body strength scores indicative of a multiple All-Pro, multiple Pro Bowl cornerback were Anthony Everett from Alabama, Greg Stroman from Virginia Tech, Henry Tolliver from Arkansas, Holton Hill from Texas, Kevin Tolliver from LSU, and Teron Johnson from Weber State. So all of those players pretty much were cornerbacks who did not hit explosive lower body strength scores indicative of a high-quality NFL player. The speed score is also a very important overall athleticism trait for cornerbacks, and these are the cornerbacks that did not hit All-Pro / Pro Bowl level speed for their size. Brandon Fassie-Sun from Virginia Tech, Chandon Sullivan from Georgia State, Chris Jones from Nebraska, DJ Reed from Kansas State, Danny Johnson from Southern, Darius Phillips from Western Michigan, Isaac Yandum from Boston College. I'm probably saying that wrong. I apologize. Jamarcus King from South Carolina, Jordan Thomas from Oklahoma, Joshua Jackson from Iowa, Cameron Kelly from San Diego State, Levi Wallace from Alabama, MJ Stewart from North Carolina, Mike Hughes from, not UNLV, but UCF. That's kind of a mistake there. And Travaris McFadden from Florida State. So these are all the players that did not hit high-quality speed numbers. The only cornerbacks to not hit the speed threshold and become a high-quality NFL player were guys like Richard Sherman, and then the other player in particular was Josh Norman, although Josh Norman hasn't exactly been able to hit three-time All-Pro level in his career yet. But those are the only two cornerbacks since 1999 that have kind of failed the speed score threshold but ended up becoming a high-quality player, which is not that many guys. And then the question becomes, did any of the players who failed the speed scores here have the physical traits that Richard Sherman had, or have the physical traits that Josh Norman had? Because both of those guys were guys that had really great length, and they also were guys that were fairly big, just big corners for their size. So that's the one thing you have to ask yourself when it comes to that. Now, in terms of guys that had great days at the Combine, obviously J.R. Alexander from Louisville had a fantastic day overall. Explosive, fast, flexible. So again, overall fantastic day for him. Grant Haley from Penn State, another guy that had a great day all around in terms of testing. Denzel Ward, of course, was pretty fantastic as well. D. Delaney from Miami, Devontae Harris from Illinois State, Dan Cruikshank from Arizona, a guy that when I was at the Shrine game, was very impressive at that particular event, and he tested very, very well. One of the best testing cornerbacks or DBs at the Combine. Avonte Maddox from Pittsburgh also tested fairly well. Andre Chachery from San Jose State, another guy that also tested extremely well. And J.C. Jackson from Maryland, another guy who also tested pretty well. Sierra Neal from Jackson State, and Tony Brown from Alabama. In general, though, when it comes to the cornerbacks at the Combine, as you can clearly see, it wasn't the most athletic group ever. There definitely were a couple guys here and there that didn't do the best that they could do. There was a lot of DNPs or did not participate. So a lot of guys didn't do the vertical and the broad jump, or only did one aspect of those drills, or didn't do the short shuttle 3-cone, or only did one aspect of those drills. So there's a lot of information still to be figured out with a lot of the cornerbacks that went to the Combine, obviously, which is why the blanks are there, is because they did not participate. However, I do think that this was a good Combine to kind of reveal the guys that are legit and the guys that are not so legit. For example, Alexander from Louisville, I think, cemented himself as the top cornerback to be taken. Denzel Ward, I think, is another guy that I think you should expect to be taken in the first round fairly high as well, based on his overall testing. So I think those would be the big, if you want to call them winners, but just guys that I think solidified their status as a first-round cornerback. I think both those guys pretty much solidified their status there. And there's other guys that could sneak in to the bottom of the first round here and there, but I just think that those are the two guys who really stood out the most based on data, and are guys that even if you weren't going by the film, they would be ranked very, very highly just from a numbers perspective. So again, I think both those guys, Ward and Alexander, again, had fantastic days. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button so that you're always reminded when another video of mine drops. And the next video coming up is, of course, defensive safeties, which would be the final video in terms of the NFL scouting Combine Analytics series. After this, I'm going to be getting into, of course, the free agency cycle, which is going to happen before you know it, and of course the NFL draft. I'm going to be doing at least one draft profile a day. That's what I'm going to shoot for on prospects that you haven't seen, and a full breakdown profile as well. So giving you the athleticism data, the production data, age data, just giving you everything about that prospect. So I would be very excited as well for those draft profiles leading up to the draft. And I'm also going to do a metric mock draft, so be on the lookout for that as well. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to release that, but essentially I'm going to do a mock draft entirely based on numbers. So it's not going to be film based or anything else like that. It's purely going to be, these are the guys that tested extremely well based on the Combine, and based on that, this is how they would stack up in an actual draft scenario. So I think that'd be kind of interesting as sort of a way to kind of educate you a bit about the guys who tested the best in the draft. Some of the names you'll see are very familiar. Some of the names are not so familiar, but I always find it fun to do one of those every once in a while to give a different type of mock draft. So instead of doing the monotonous, everybody does a mock draft where they just kind of repeat what everybody else says, this will be a lot more unique and have an actual purpose of at least educating you about some of the guys who tested the best in the class. And with all that out of the way, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.